I want to share with you the sacred method I use to manifest anything I desire. It is simple, it is quiet, it is as ancient as thought itself, and yet as immediate as the next breath you take. I call it scripting, but it is not mere journaling, not idle daydreaming, and it is not repetition for repetition's sake. It is the conscious, deliberate assumption of the wish fulfilled, written into life with the hand of faith and the ink of imagination. I ask you to set aside what you think you know about writing. For this is not about words. This is about energy, about vibration, about becoming. You see, man is always manifesting. There is no moment in which you are not projecting, molding, shaping the clay of your reality. The only difference is whether you do it consciously or unconsciously. Most people live life in reaction to the world. But the secret I wish to impress upon you is this: the world reacts to you. And scripting is how I choose to lead the dance. Let me take you back to when I first discovered this method. Not in theory, but in practice. I had heard of writing affirmations, visualizing, and imagining, but I found that I was too easily distracted. I would try to imagine, but my mind would wander. I would repeat affirmations, but they felt hollow. I needed something tangible, yet deeply spiritual, something that married the outer and inner worlds. That's when I was led, through an inner nudge, to try writing a letter to myself from the future. Not as an exercise in fiction, but as a decree, a declaration, a divine script written from the state of the wish fulfilled. So I sat down and I wrote not about what I wanted, but from the state of already having it. I wrote as if the miracle had already occurred. I wrote with the feeling that it was done. And as I wrote, I didn't just use my intellect. I allowed my emotions to lead. I became the man who had already received. And I discovered something extraordinary. I could feel the truth of it. I felt the joy, the relief, the satisfaction of the thing accomplished. And I knew in that moment I had moved the wheel of creation. Understand this: imagination is the only redemptive power. Your senses will try to convince you otherwise, but the senses are shadows. The only light comes from within. When I write my scripts, I do not write for the world to see. I write to stir myself. I write to awaken the inner God. I write to commune with the divine I am that dwells in me as me. And I do not ask for things in my script. I assume them. I declare them. I live them on the page. You may ask, how does writing change anything? And I will tell you, it is not the writing, but the state from which the writing comes. It is the consciousness behind the hand. When I script, I move into the feeling of the wish fulfilled. I do not write, I want this, or I hope for that. I write, it is done, I am that. I feel this. I see that. I bring my senses into alignment with the invisible reality I am birthing. And the more vivid the script, the more real it becomes. And as within, so without. I remember once I desired a sum of money, not for greed, but for freedom. I did not script about needing money. I scripted from the perspective of the one who already had it. I wrote how grateful I was for the unexpected deposit. I described the feelings I felt when I saw my bank balance. I described the things I was now doing freely because the money had arrived. I described how light my body felt, how I moved through life with a new power, a new generosity. I scripted as though it were already mine. And I tell you, within days, the exact amount came to me through a means I could never have predicted. This is not coincidence. This is law. What is written with conviction in consciousness must externalize. There is no other way. The outer world is a mirror, and your script is the reflection you choose to place before the glass. If you write from lack, the mirror gives you more lack. If you write from fullness, the mirror gives you abundance. This is why the state from which you write is everything. When I script, I make it a sacred act. I light a candle. I sit in silence. I close my eyes and dwell in the feeling of my wish fulfilled. I allow that scene to form within me, not as fantasy, but as fact. I see it. I hear it. I touch it. I taste it. And then I begin to write, not mechanically, but reverently, as though I am writing a letter to God, knowing He is not out there, but within. I do not write to impress. I write to express. I write to feel. And I write to remember who I really am. For you see, scripting is not just about getting things, it is about remembering your divine power. It is about reclaiming your identity as the operant power. Every time I write, I reinforce the truth that I create reality with my assumptions and that all things are possible to him who believes. I do not wait for evidence. I become the evidence. There was a time I wanted to change my living situation. I was in a place that did not reflect my inner world. So I did not script about moving. I scripted from the place I wished to live. I described the sunlight in the new home. I described the view from my window. I wrote of the sounds, the smells, the peace I felt in the new space. I thanked the universe not for delivering it, but for already placing me there. I wrote until it felt so real that I could feel the wood floors beneath my feet. And in less than a month, through a seemingly random conversation, I found myself in the very kind of home I had written about. And I knew then what I know now: creation is finished. All I did was select it. Scripting, when done properly, is a selection mechanism. It is a tuning fork for the soul. You are not creating out of nothing, you are choosing from the infinite possibilities that already exist. Every reality you could ever live is already present, waiting for you to assume it. And scripting is how I assume. I write it, I feel it, I believe it, and I let it go. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It means resting. It means trusting that once I have felt the reality of it, once I have accepted it as done, there is nothing more I must do. The seed has been planted. I do not dig it up with doubt. I water it with expectation. I breathe on it with gratitude. And I allow the unseen hand of God to bring it into form. There are no limits to what you can script. I have written about relationships and seen them mend. I have written about health and seen symptoms vanish. I have written about opportunities and had doors swing open without effort. But I caution you, do not script from fear. Do not script from desperation. Script from love, from power, from peace. Feel yourself into the outcome and write only what you wish to see. The pen is a wand when wielded in the right state. Some may ask, how often do I need to script? And I say, as often as it takes for you to feel it real. There is no magic number. One line, written in the fullness of faith, is worth more than 10 pages of empty repetition. Quality over quantity. Emotion over mechanics. And never script as a chore. Script as a joy. Script as communion. And you will find the process itself is the reward. You must understand the world is yourself pushed out. And the script you write today is the life you live tomorrow. Write wisely. Write deliberately. Write as God would write, boldly, lovingly, powerfully. You do not write to see if it will work. You write because you know it already has. There was a time I wrote of a version of myself I had never yet met. I described him in vivid detail. I wrote about his energy, his confidence, his poise. I wrote of his wisdom, his calm, his joy. I wrote as though I was him. And day by day, line by line, I became him. Not through effort, but through alignment. For what you write again and again, in the feeling of truth, will etch itself into your being. If you do nothing else, do this tonight. Write a letter to yourself from your future. Begin with the words, I am so happy now that, and fill in the rest. Write as though your greatest desire has already come to pass. Pour your heart into it, and then before you sleep, read it aloud. Slowly, with feeling. Fall asleep in the assumption that it is done. Do this, and you will move the heavens. Scripting is the bridge between the unseen and the seen. It is not the words themselves, but the spirit in which they are written. Be not deceived by appearances. The world may not shift instantly, but it must shift. The law cannot be broken. What is assumed with feeling and persisted in must manifest. And so I tell you, as one who has walked this path, who has scripted love and found it, who has scripted abundance and lived it, who has scripted peace and felt it, this works. Not because of who I am, but because of who we all are. We are creators. We are imagers. We are script writers of the soul. And every line you write in faith becomes a law unto itself. So pick up your pen, not to beg, not to plead, but to declare. Write your life as you wish it to be, and know that in doing so, you are not imagining in vain. You are shaping destiny. and destiny always obeys the hand that knows its power. This is how I manifest anything using scripting. Not by force, not by chance, but by feeling, by vision, by conviction. Try it. Not to test the law, but to prove it. For as you believe, so shall it be done unto you. And it is already done. Do not worry if your first scripts feel unnatural. In the beginning, I too wrestled with doubt. I would write things that felt distant, improbable, even fantastical. But I persisted, not because I believed in the paper, but because I believed in the principle. The more I wrote from the state of fulfillment, the more I came to embody it. At first it was a spark, then it became a flame. Eventually it consumed the old man, and I rose as the new. This process is not about the intellect. It is not about logic or strategy. It is about identity. You are not trying to get anything. You are remembering that you already are everything. Scripting merely becomes the portal through which your true self steps into visibility. When I write, I do not plan how my desires will manifest. I do not scheme. I do not stress. I surrender to the wisdom of the unseen, knowing that what I assume to be true inwardly must be revealed outwardly in its own perfect timing and form. There was a moment I recall vividly. I had written about a dream opportunity, one that seemed, by all worldly standards, unreachable. Yet I wrote as though it were already secured. I thanked those who congratulated me. I described how my mornings felt now that I had stepped into this new chapter. I described my emotional state, my routine, my excitement, my deep inner peace. I wrote not once, but every day for a week, refining the vision, amplifying the feeling, and most importantly, living it in consciousness. Then one day, out of the blue, I received a message. An introduction was made. A door opened. The very opportunity I had described found me as if drawn by some invisible force. But it was not invisible. It was the force of imagination impregnated with belief. And from that day forward, I vowed never again to live by sight, but by inner vision. This is the secret. You do not have to chase your dreams. You have only to embody them. And scripting is the rehearsal. It is the sacred theater where you play the role until the world catches up to your performance. I do not script to try to fool myself. I script to reveal myself. For deep within, I already know that all I seek is already mine. The world will offer resistance, not because it has power, but because it is slow to respond. It is dense, like a shadow lagging behind the moving body. But it must follow the cause, and the cause is always your assumption. Never forget that. Your assumption is the first creation. The manifestation is merely the echo. So I continue to write, not because I need to, but because I love to. I write about the people I meet, the experiences I live, the abundance that surrounds me. I write of the joy that fills my heart, the synchronicities that confirm my path. I write of a life that overflows with beauty and grace. And each time I script, I anchor myself deeper into that reality. Each word becomes a seed, and my faith is the soil. I have written about health, about seeing my body radiate strength and harmony. I describe walking with energy, feeling light and free. I wrote of waking up refreshed, of my cells humming with life. And as I wrote, something shifted. My habits aligned. My mind cleared. My body obeyed the script. Not because I forced it, but because I finally saw myself rightly. I have written about love, not to attract it, but to become it. I described being in the presence of a partner who saw me, knew me, cherished me. I described laughter, deep conversation, mutual growth. I wrote of ease, of connection, of sacred union. And I did not write from loneliness. I wrote from wholeness. I wrote as one who already possessed the love he desired. And from that state, love appeared, not to complete me, but to mirror me. There is no desire too great, no dream too distant. Scripting does not discriminate. It responds to your state. That is why I urge you, do not write from lack. Do not beg on the page. Speak as a creator. Speak as one who knows. Let your hand be guided by your highest self. Write not to make something happen, but to affirm what already is. When you understand this, you will know freedom. I keep a notebook solely for this purpose. It is not a diary of what has happened, but a declaration of what is true now in the invisible realm. I do not use it to complain. I use it to create. And sometimes I reread past entries, not to marvel at my accuracy, but to deepen my faith.
Every fulfilled script reminds me, this works. This is law. This is life. Some may ask, what if I don't believe what I write? And I say, write anyway. Belief is a muscle, and scripting is the exercise. The more you persist, the more natural it becomes. You are not lying to yourself. You are freeing yourself from the lie that you are powerless. That lie is the real deception. What you write in faith is not a fantasy. It is prophecy. When I feel resistance, when doubt creeps in, I return to my script. I write not to convince the world, but to convince myself. I remind myself through every sentence, I am the operant power. I am the cause. I am the source. I am the one I've been waiting for. And that knowing dissolves all fear. Even when outer circumstances seem contrary, I remain loyal to my script. For I know the script is the blueprint. The world is the stage, and time is the unfolding. I do not allow the temporary to override the eternal. I do not let what is visible cancel what is invisible. I hold fast to the truth I have written in faith. I let the vision burn brighter than appearances. There is a joy in scripting, a power, a calm. It centers you, it elevates you. It tunes you to the frequency of miracles. And what is a miracle but a natural outcome of supernatural belief? Scripting is not the source of the miracle. It is the alignment to the source within you. You are not making anything happen. You are letting it happen through you. And so I continue to script, not because I am in need, but because I am in awareness. Not to get, but to give thanks in advance. I script not to manipulate the world, but to release the truth, buried under doubt. Each sentence I write becomes a brick in the mansion of my manifested life. And every mansion begins with a single line. Try this tonight. Write for 10 minutes, as if your greatest desire has already happened. Do not edit. Do not hesitate. Let it flow. Describe what you feel, what you see, what you know to be true now. Read it aloud. Feel it deeply, and sleep in that state. I promise you, something will begin to move. Not because of magic, but because of law. The law responds to who you are being. Scripting is how I become before I see. It is how I walk in the unseen, until the unseen becomes seen. It is how I live in the end, even when the middle is still unfolding. And the more I do it, the more I see that life bends to the clarity of my script. I do not need evidence to begin. I script the evidence. I do not wait for signs. I create them. I do not consult the world. I consult my soul. And in the sacred silence of my journal, I speak the word that goes forth and does not return void. I remember once writing about financial freedom, not in vague terms, but in absolute detail. I described waking up in my dream home, walking barefoot on warm wood floors, the morning light spilling through sheer curtains. I wrote of checking my account and seeing abundance. I wrote of helping others, giving freely, investing in dreams, not just my own, but those of strangers who needed only one yes to change their lives. I wrote of the peace, the certainty, the gratitude. And with every paragraph, I felt wealth move from idea to embodiment. Soon after, opportunities presented themselves, some small, others extraordinary. And they all echoed what I had already written. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a reflection. That's what scripting does. It builds the inner temple, brick by brick, word by word. And once it's constructed inside, life must reflect it outside. Not because the world is obedient, but because you are powerful. Because you are the creator, not the created. You are not here to react to life. You are here to command it, to shape it, to direct it with the authority of your imagination and the clarity of your conviction. The beauty of scripting is that it bypasses the noisy mind. It quiets the voices that say, you can't, you shouldn't, or that's impossible. It allows the truth within you to speak louder than the lies around you. And when you write consistently, with feeling, with faith, with joy, you don't just write different words. You become a different person. The one who already has what they desire. When I began scripting, I didn't know how my desires would manifest. I only knew that they were mine. I treated them as present facts, not future possibilities. I stopped wishing and started declaring. I stopped hoping and started assuming. And the difference was night and day. The shift was subtle, but total. I no longer looked outside to verify my worth. I looked within to express my truth. I wrote about freedom, about feeling weightless in my decisions, uninhibited by fear or hesitation. I wrote of knowing, deep in my bones, that I was always supported, that even when I made mistakes, they led me closer to clarity. I wrote of living from a state of flow, where the right people, ideas and resources simply found me. And they did. Not because the world changed, but because I changed. Understand this. Scripting is not a passive exercise. It is not just journaling. It is a spiritual act, a metaphysical declaration. When done with intention, it becomes a conversation with the divine. It's not about tricking yourself. It's about tuning yourself, aligning your inner broadcast, so purely that the universe can't help but respond. It has to. It is law. I have used scripting to dissolve anxiety, to open doors, to deepen relationships, to call in clarity. I have seen friends and clients do the same. The results come when they stop writing as who they were, and start writing as who they choose to be. There's a moment always, when the shift happens. A line is written that breaks something open inside them. It clicks, and from that moment, the rest of the script flows, not from the mind, but from the soul. I recall one woman, heartbroken and confused, who began scripting her ideal relationship. At first, she resisted. It felt fake, even painful, but she stayed with it. She wrote of being seen, loved, chosen, of laughter-filled dinners, lazy Sunday mornings, deep talks under the stars. And one day, as she reread her script, she began to weep, not from sadness, but from recognition. She wasn't mourning the absence of that love. She was finally claiming its presence. And within months, the very relationship she had scripted came into her life. Not identical indeed, but perfect in essence. This is not fiction. This is the divine play. And you are the playwright. What you write in consciousness, you cast upon the screen of your life. So be bold. Be specific. Be fearless. Do not write small. Do not hedge your dreams. Let them roar. Let them sing. Write as one who knows their word, carries weight. Write as one who knows the truth, makes its own way. When doubt whispers, what if it doesn't work? I reply, it already has. When fear asks, what if you're wrong? I respond, then I'll be wrong with confidence. Because in this game of life, the only failure is forgetting who you are. The only mistake is believing the world over your word. There is no resistance too great, no delay too long, that can override the assumption sustained. The script you repeat becomes the life you live. The more you write it, the more you feel it. The more you feel it, the more you believe it. The more you believe it, the more you live it. And it all begins with the courage to imagine, and to do so consistently. When I script, I enter a sanctuary. The world fades, and the truth remains. I am reminded, not of what is lacking, but of what is eternal. I remember that I do not chase, I attract. That I do not earn, I express. That I do not beg, I declare. My words become worlds. My pages become portals. I do not write for therapy. I write for transformation. And so I write in the morning, before the world speaks. I write at night, when the veil is thin. I write in between meetings, in coffee shops, on planes. I write because the act of writing grounds me in who I am choosing to be. And that choice, made again and again, becomes identity. It becomes assumption. And assumption, as Neville taught, hardens into fact. I am not special. I simply remembered. And so can you. Start today. Write as if, not once, not twice, but until the script becomes so natural, you forget it was ever just a script. Until you walk through your day and realize you are living your words. You are embodying your vision. You are the one you've been scripting all along. You are walking in the echoes of your inner conversations. You are dancing to the rhythm you once wrote down, when no one was watching, when only your soul bore witness to your longing. That script, penned with trembling hope, or bold certainty, is now the architecture of your existence. Do you see now why I say, write not with caution, but with conviction? Because you are not recording what has happened. You are commanding what will. I remember once writing about peace, not the fleeting kind, but the kind that lives in your chest like a steady flame. I wrote of walking through life, untouched by noise, unmoved by chaos. I described how every morning I awoke feeling safe, anchored at. I didn't write to convince myself. I wrote because it was so. And days later, I began to feel that peace bloom within me. It moved in first, like a whisper, then a breath, then a presence that never left. My reality obeyed my declaration. Scripting, when done in spirit, is not just a tool. It is a rehearsal for the real. And the more vividly you rehearse, the faster you perform. I have seen people script careers they didn't believe they could ever hold. I have seen tears fall on pages that declared, I am healthy, whole, and vibrant, only for those words to become flesh as healing manifested, seemingly from nowhere. But there is no nowhere. There is only the unseen, waiting for your permission to become seen. Do not wait for evidence to believe. That is the world's way. Your way, the spiritual way, is to believe and then see, to feel and then receive, to assume and then experience. The moment you script from your wish fulfilled, you are touching the eternal, the infinite, the divine within you. And it does not fail. It cannot fail. It simply expresses. Let your scripting be playful, powerful, poetic. Don't worry about grammar. Worry only about feeling. If it makes your heart beat faster, if it makes you smile in stillness, you're doing it right. You are building your world one word at a time, one scene at a time. And your world is listening. Every word counts. Every sentence sends a signal. And the universe echoes back with the exact rhythm you've declared. I have watched people script wealth and receive unexpected inheritances. I have watched others write about self-love and suddenly attract the most nourishing friendships. I've watched the lonely become beloved, the stuck become unstoppable, all because they dared to script not what was, but what must be. There are days, I must tell you, when the old thoughts return, when the past tries to narrate the future. On those days, I pick up my pen like a sword. I write again, louder, bolder. I return to the truth, and I rewrite my reality, again, and again, and again. For I know now, deeply, that every repetition embeds a new identity, and identity determines destiny. You must be consistent. You must be deliberate. Write not from frustration, but from fulfillment. Don't write about wanting. Write from having. Don't script your desire, as if it's outside you. Script it as your breath, your birthright. Begin each script by stepping into the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Close your eyes, feel it, and then write. Let the words flow from that place. That's the secret. If your world doesn't change in a day, do not doubt the method. The seed does not bloom the moment it's planted, but it grows, underground, in silence, in stillness, until one day it pierces through the soil and reaches for the sun. That's your manifestation. It may begin invisibly, but it ends tangibly. Trust that. There is no limit but the one you script. There is no lack but the one you write. If you are broke, script wealth. If you are alone, script love. If you are tired, script energy. Not because you are escaping your present, but because you are re-choosing it. And in choosing anew, you resurrect a new version of yourself. So I write, and I write, and I write. Not because I must, but because I may. Because I have tasted the power of assumption, and know it to be true. Because I have lived in the end so often, that the beginning no longer confuses me. I have seen too much to doubt. I have received too much to question, and you will too. So I say to you now, pick up your pen, not as a tool, but as a torch. Light the way ahead, with words that match the life you dare to claim. Write as the master, not the beggar. Speak as the fulfilled, not the forsaken. Declare your reality, not as one waiting to be chosen, but as one who has already chosen. Scripting is not just about imagining. It is about remembering who you truly are. The operant power, the divine creator, clothed in flesh. When you write, do not ask if it will work. Know that it already is. Because the moment you script with faith, you are not writing fiction. You are awakening fact. And the universe, ever faithful, will rise to mirror your assumption. This is how I manifest anything. By writing it into being. Now it's your turn.